I'd really like to introduce Justin Perry. Justin's a close friend of mine and a recent graduate of BCIT Forest Natural Areas Management Program, like myself. He was chosen as a valedictorian of our 2018 class based on his work with Indigenous services and storytelling skills. Following Justin's graduation, Justin found a new passion in land management using drones for remote sensing. Justin's experience with drones has spanned projects including wildfire rehabilitation, search and rescue projects, and sensitive ecosystem management. You can find Justin practicing meditation as well as taking astrophotography. Please welcome Justin Perry.
Thank you, Torin.
Awesome.
Am I coming in clear?
Yes, you are.
Okay, lovely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll start by saying thank you for all attending the Invasive Species Council of BC's Virtual Youth Summit. I've not had the opportunity to meet and talk with you face to face, but there are a couple of things I've recognized and assumed. You've all volunteered your time to attend this workshop. Already this shows many things: a desire to improve your communities, a desire to know more about plants, animals, and the earth, and at least some open-mindedness. These are all admirable traits. And in a way, these assumptions were the foundation for this presentation. Throughout the presentation, I'll be showing some of my photography and just basically giving stories. I should also say too, my Wi-Fi cuts out every few days. I'm praying it doesn't happen right now, but if I cut out, give me a minute or two to get back, and we'll just transition and be flexible with whatever we need to do. So I'll talk about myself very quickly. I come from Métis Nation and my heritage is multiracial. The Indigenous part of my heritage is Ojibwe. I got my license for fixed wing aircraft in my early 20s. My father and I are active volunteers with Northern Youth Abroad. We host Indigenous youth from the Northwest Territories and Nunavut to live with us. During this time, the Indigenous students share their culture with us, and the youth broaden the perspective on life outside their smaller communities. I'm sort of a big brother when it comes to this, so I love working with youth. Later in my 20s, I went to BCIT for forestry. BCIT was amazing. I was able to work hard and enter into a career I was very passionate about. Following graduation, I went to work with forestry and drones, and I established a drone flight school with the company I was working for at the time. I'm grateful to do this because it combined my aviation and forestry experience. I love learning and teaching. I chose forestry for spiritual reasons. While I was at BCIT, I spent my free time with Indigenous services. I met fantastic people, amazing elders, and had a plethora of outlets to explore my spiritual desire. My elders at BCIT have taught me that I should seek to walk with respect for both the people of this land and the land itself. We have much to learn from all the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. I have much to learn myself. So I say thank you to those who have been and continue to be my teachers. I would also like to thank all of you for participating and volunteering. Take what you can from my speech and leave the rest behind. You may find later today, later in the weekend, next week, that you make connections with what I have said to your own experiences. This is a good thing. We must continually reflect on what has been taught to us and reinforce it through our own connections and experiences. After all, the main point of this discussion, what I wanted to share with you today is the importance of connections. I'm going to share certain Indigenous teachings based off my experiences that I hope will help you. I'm going to share a couple of stories. We'll stop a few times for Q&A when the time is right. And if there's time at the end, I can share a bit on how I use drones in my line of work, but it depends on the questions and the time we have. So we'll see how things go. And thank you for your flexibility. I'll start by saying no one person has all the answers. We all must walk our own paths and grow stronger through our experiences. Everyone has a role and part to play in life. Today's discussion topic is, it is better to look for connections instead of divisions. Today, we are going to connect the medicine wheel, salmon, and cedar tree with volunteering and being strong. We need more people who can reflect, think critically, and unite people and things instead of separating them. Many Indigenous communities share teachings about a medicine wheel. Amongst other things, it teaches about the cycle of life, plant use, and health. I'll be sharing parts of this teaching today. This is what I've learned from the medicine wheel and what has been refined down to what I think is the most useful for you guys. Plants, animals, and Mother Earth can teach us many things. Your cat may bring you a bird when you're grieving the loss of a loved one. Crows can recognize people even when they change clothes. They also communicate with one another and tell each other which people are friendly and which people pose a threat. Crows exhibit intricate social behavior, such as having funerals, and have the intelligence to solve complex problems. Acacia trees in Africa produce a chemical tannin when they are being eaten. This has two purposes. Number one, it impedes digestion of potential predators, making it less appealing in an attempt to defend itself. Secondly, it acts as a signal to other trees. When predators eat the leaves of acacia trees, tannin is released into the air. The adjacent acacia trees sense the released tannin and increase their own production of it to protect themselves. So in a way, the trees are able to communicate and speak with each other. And then for good measure, a nice picture of Serengeti. It is important that we respect the intelligence and life of all things. I would have preferred to talk about a tree from BC, but this is a well-documented study, and if you want to look more into it, let me know later. So continuing on. Today's first story is about salmon. Salmon are revered and respected by Northwest Pacific Indigenous peoples. Salmon are anadromous, meaning they spend their lives in both freshwater and saltwater. BC salmon spawn in freshwater streams. After hatching from their eggs, salmon fry spend a few months to a couple of years in freshwater streams. Following this, they migrate to the ocean where they spend nearly the rest of their life. But they have an important role to fulfill before their lives end. To complete this task, they return to where they were born. Salmon may travel hundreds or thousands of miles to return to the streams they were spawned in. Salmon have two abilities that allow them to find their way homes. And it is suspected that they sense the Earth's magnetic field and are able to use this like a compass. And secondly, salmon have an extraordinary strong sense of smell. In one study, it was reported that copper in water measured at 2 parts per billion impeded their sense of smell, so they're very sensitive. So, using their compasses and ability to smell, they find their way to the base of the stream. Salmon then must swim upstream and find their birthplace to spawn. If this happens successfully, they spawn, giving birth and passing life on to the next generation. But there's a lot more at play here than initially meets the eye. Salmon help provide life to the ecosystems they spawn in. Their carcasses are consumed by bears, and they decompose to give life to plants and trees. Salmon DNA can be found in algae, plants, and trees in the areas they spawn in. Bears seem to understand this process. Bears have been observed to go out of their way to purposely defecate on trees, likely knowing that they fertilize them. And here's an overview of the salmon's life cycle. In a lot of ways, it resembles the medicine wheel. So what connections can we draw between the medicine wheel, salmon, and this weekend's topic of volunteering? There's an infinite amount of lessons, but I wanted to discuss 3 today. Number 1, salmon live their lives and never forget where they came from. By volunteering with the Invasive Species Council of BC, you can make your own habitats healthier and help the places where you came from. Number 2, we can learn from their determination. There will be times in life when you must swim upstream and you must be strong. The connections you've made will help you get through these times. Volunteering is constructive and will help you become stronger. We'll definitely touch on this more throughout the rest of the speech. And 3, salmon selflessly give everything they have back to the earth. Volunteering lets us give something back and further the understanding of these teachings. Many special things happen when we volunteer. Much like the salmon's life cycle, there's much more happening than initially meets the eye. Remember I said the medicine wheel teaches us about the cycle of life? When we volunteer, the 4 stages of the life cycle work together, having similar roles with key differences. And those 4 roles are infancy, youth, adult, and the elder. Youth have an especially special role. At your age, you have likely developed principles and are looking for further meaning. You are key in circulating ideas throughout the wheel. What I mean by this is you can learn from your elders, apply their ideas, and refine them through your own experiences and share it with those younger than you. The same way that salmon nurture the next generation. So there was a lot of information in once. I hope I didn't overdo it. I also want to reiterate that this is my current understanding of the medicine wheel. Every Indigenous culture is different, and they may or may not have teachings about this, and if they do, they may differ. Now, hopefully you can see why salmon are a symbol of determination and renewal. Salmon willingly give their lives up to support the wheel of life. If you choose to eat salmon, you should give thanks and think about its connection to you and the rest of the world. More reasons to volunteer. It's been established that volunteering improves cognitive functioning. You stimulate your mind by learning and refining skills. You find emotional outlets by working and speaking with others. You may even get exercise or spiritual fulfillment depending on what you put your time into. Being part of something like this is good because you're also helping your elders. If they are participating in something like this event, they want to share their teachings with you. We must be thankful for those teaching us. I've been able to accomplish some cool things since leaving high school, but a large reason for this is because I spent much of my time with people who know more than I did. I had teachers I looked up to, ones that taught me how to fly, how to speak, and how to take care of others. And they had people who wanted to teach them. My advice is find an elder who wants to share their teachings with you and that wants to nurture the next generations to come. Recent times have been destabilizing for some. We've all had our routines interrupted and may feel a little off. You may feel frustrated emotionally because you have not had much face-to-face time with family and friends. It is important and healthy to ask yourself why you feel the way that you do. Validate and try to understand your feelings. We need to recognize the importance of the people around us. If you're upset, talk to them and let them know they are missed. It'll probably make both of you feel much better. You might have had an exercise regimen established, such as going to the gym or doing Tai Chi or yoga established. Try to keep moving however you can. It will help you stay balanced. Exercise helps me think and remain calm. I don't force myself to sit at a desk for hours at a time when I write. Walking helps me think and helps my writing and ability to calm my mind. It is important to think about how all these things on the wheel are connected. There's another study I wanted to share with you. It paints a very powerful image. Walking has been proving to be statistically significant in reducing all causes of mortality. Adults over 40 who took 6,000 steps or more had all cases of mortality reduced by half as compared to adults that took 2,000 or fewer steps. Diminishing returns happens around 8 to 10,000 steps. If you're young and healthy, shoot for this amount, but listen to your body too. When you exercise, see how you feel emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. All these things are intricately connected. But don't start an exercise regimen without consulting your doctor if you have underlying health problems. So, good time to take a question and answer break.
Awesome. Yeah. That's a lovely presentation, Justin. We have lots of people in the chat just saying how beautiful the imagery that you have up on the screen is. Absolutely. Amanda says, absolutely participating in a bigger movement. But Adrian Zimmerman has a question here for you, Justin. Could you tell us about one of your favorite experiences working with youth?
I don't know if I could tell you my favorite experience, but this is one that hits home very hard with me. So for 8 years, my father and I have volunteered with Northern Youth Abroad. Every year we got 2 different Indigenous teenagers living with us. We had one very special young man named Olaf stay with us. Olaf was from Greece Fjord, the most northern community in the whole world. It's complete darkness there for 2 or 3 months at a time in the winter. So they're way up there geographically north. So Olaf was very special. He was always smiling, always laughing, always such a pleasure to be around. But one time I asked him, what's happening with climate change from your community? And this is one of the only times I saw him without a smile. And he said, he just was completely, it just portrayed how powerfully he felt about climate change, because northern communities are having their way of life completely destroyed with melting ice, and it's affecting their ability to hunt, to fish, and live their lives in the way that they have for thousands and thousands of years. So again, maybe not necessarily like a happy experience, but one that is important to share. So second story. He has two species of cedar trees, western red cedar and yellow cedar, and remember how intricately connected the salmon and the cedar were. Cedar trees can be recognized by their vertical bark and scale-like leaves. Cedar trees can live well past 300 years, and there's been one cedar tree estimated to have lived for around 1,500 years. There are still living cedar trees that have been here much longer than before European colonization of Turtle Island started. Indigenous communities have stripped the bark of cedar tree for millennia, used for housing, spiritual ceremonies, and much more. Cedar is one of 4 sacred plants on the medicine wheel. Indigenous teachings tell us that every plant has a spirit. When we harvest cedar bark, we offer the tree tobacco, acknowledging its spirit and letting it know why we are taking from them. The western red cedar is BC's official tree. It was called the Tree of Life by many Pacific Northwest Indigenous communities. Amongst other things, the cedar tree represents healing, generosity, and forgiveness. I've talked about strengthening yourself. Doing so will help you in the hard parts of your life and help you help others when they need it. But there's no shame in seeking help from others. There's no shame in getting professional therapy or medical help if you need it. What I do think is a shame is holding yourself back from healing because you worry about the way others who don't want the best for you think. My life was recently saved by Western medicine, and now I'm going to talk about the lowest point in my life and hopefully bring all these ideas together. It's a little bit emotional, but we'll see how things go. Back in September 2019, I was diagnosed with cancer. I went through 4 rounds of grueling chemotherapy and had major surgery on New Year's Eve of last year. I'm recovering now. But anyways, during this time, there were times I had to walk alone and rely on my own strength. But these teachings I've shared with you are some of the things that help me stay strong. There are no burdens that one single person should have to carry alone. My mother was at my bedside every hour when I was in chemotherapy. I had family and friends get me through the worst parts. I've not yet had the opportunity to meet most of you, so this is a generalization. It might not apply to everyone. This is derived from my experience, from what I have seen through my work with youth, and what I've seen from my experiences the last few months. From what I see, some people think that the only way to become happy is to travel the world and become a social media influencer. We only see people on Instagram and social media post when they're at their happiness. We may ask ourselves, what am I doing wrong? Or why am I not good enough to live life that way? What I'm trying to say is this is not the only way to live. I think you can have a more meaningful, happy life if you try to understand the connection you have with the earth where you came from and help your habitat, much like the salmon does. You can make a difference if you put effort into it. If you like animals, you can volunteer at a shelter. If you like children, you can become a big brother or sister. If you want to learn more about the earth, you can volunteer with the Invasive Species Council. Despite what is often portrayed on the news, there are people who care, and there's so much beauty and love in the world. People who volunteered their times bringing their dogs to the chemotherapy wards made a difference. The nurses made a difference. My elders, families, friends, and pets all made the biggest difference. So I say thank you. I'm not going to tell you where to put your time or what path you must walk. That is up for you to decide. But what I'm going to do is encourage you because I know you have potential and I know you can make a difference. We need people who can make beautiful art. We need people who can take care of others and who can reflect, write, and speak. Find your passion and continually pursue it. I encourage you to listen very closely to the communications workshop that is later today. Writing is so important because you learn about yourself and the rest of the world. It can help with healing too. I know this whole experience for me has been very healthy. We need people who can dream and who can be idealistic, but we also need to give thanks and recognize what works in society. There are things we got right. We can't simply forsake and forget the things that the work of past generations have left us. We have hospitals, schools, highways, and grocery stores that are constantly full of food. I will share with you the ups and downs in my life, and we can discuss what works and what is strong enough to persevere. I've been pulled down to a very difficult place 6 times since September. And these teachings and connections with people I've made have helped pull me through. Everyone goes through hard times, but life is also beautiful. I believe you will feel better if you try to become stronger and help others. And we can connect with more people, try to understand their perspectives, learn from them, and come out as a more complete person. We can learn from the people that mistreat us and who have opposing viewpoints, but it is much better to try and build a life around people who want the best for you. We can also connect with the earth, the animals, and the plants, taking lessons from them and giving thanks for all that is provided to us. The surgery that I had left me with a large vertical scar on my abdomen. I draw parallels to the cedar tree and lessons it has taught me, especially about healing and forgiveness. Here's a picture of a cedar tree that's had its bark removed. So the bark is removed in vertical strips. This brings me comfort, and I use the scar as a source of strength instead of weakness. Now I'm at peace with what I went through. Times are difficult right now. I won't take that away from you. I also acknowledge anxiety is a very real and very serious thing, especially for youth. However, the Indigenous perspective is to generally try and take lessons and strength from the hard times in your life. Doing so will let you stand strong and help others when they need it. These teachings about the medicine wheel, the cedar tree, the salmon, and Mother Earth go infinitely deep. There's no way one person can fully understand them in one lifetime. This is another reason why it is good to come together to encourage and help one another and to share perspective regardless of culture, race, or beliefs. It is up to you as to whether you want to carry these teachings into your own life. No one person has all the answers. We all must walk our own paths and grow stronger through our experiences. Everyone has a role and part to play in life. It is better to look for connections instead of divisions. We need more people who can reflect, think critically, and unite people and things instead of separating them. All my relations. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Justin. That was absolutely inspiring. We definitely have time here. I really want to read out the chat messages that have been popping up while you've been talking. Adrian Zimmerman, very inspiring. Karen Brandt came on. Karen Brandt said, "This is communications, inspiring action." Caitlin, beautiful. Thank you for sharing your journey. And we actually have Patty, if you wanted to just, Patty reiterated herself here. She really likes the spiritual aspect of, so I'll just read the question again for you, Justin. So who is your biggest influence to look at this deeper meaning of life? And I believe Patty was thinking more of the spiritual aspect of that.
Very fair. Patty, thank you for your question. Believe it or not, like I said, this is kind of like a whole intricate path of meaning that I developed, but it started off from very humble beginnings. It actually all started during high school when I decided to start jogging through the woods, and eventually I felt connections. I felt peace. I felt relaxed. I just felt happy to be in the woods, and one thing led to another. Eventually I started doing Tai Chi, which is another beautiful spiritual practice. And at BCIT, I just was very inspired by one of the elders in residence, Alf Dumont, who is one of my biggest, one of my biggest role models, I guess we could say. And he just so selflessly gives everything he has back. And I want to leave it at that.
Awesome. Just a couple things here. They keep popping up, Justin. Everyone in the chat is just saying how inspiring your speech was, and I completely agree. Jenny, thank you so much. Corbin says, what a strong message. Amanda is, I'm almost in tears. Your story is very inspiring and relatable for my family about a decade ago. And Brittany is just saying, this really brings it all together. Thank you so much. And Patty, thanks you so much for your answer. We actually do have one question from Facebook, Justin. What are some key things to consider when working with Indigenous peoples in restoration?
The thing is, that's very complicated because it's just like asking, is there one way to speak to everyone? What I would recommend is be humble and really listen to the person and listen to their needs. Don't assume that just because they're Indigenous, they speak or they think one way. Every Indigenous person has their own understanding, so just respect that and try and really be patient, be quiet, and listen. And be humble, be humble. Emphasize that again.
That's great. Well, Justin, once again, thank you so much for coming on to this. It was really inspiring. Thank you.